the modernization as such in the first part, and I'm going to tell you the results of my research. In the second part, we're going to look at the rationale. So why does Russia keep modernizing its nuclear arsenal? So we can say that Russian strategic nuclear modernization has been a continuing process, and that the process intensified in both its pace and also in its scope. I identified 3 phases of the modernization. The first one starting in 1991, ending in 1998. In that phase, Russia focused its effort on modernization of one leg of its triad, and that was the ground-launched ICBM leg. In the second phase, that started around 1999, we could witness kind of an more aggressive approach to modernization, and Russia was deploying not only ICBMs, but also new SLBMs. In the third phase, that started actually in mid-2000s, but I identified the start for 2009, because that was when Russia announced they're going to deploy a new strategic bomber. So you can see that the intensification really happened. And unfortunately, I don't have time to tell you more details, but I'm going to list all of the systems that Russia has been working on since the 90s in the next slide. So this is the ICBM's modernization. You can see that Russia deployed 3 new ICBMs, and currently they are working on 2 new heavy ICBMs. I'm sure you've heard about the Rubesh missile that we suspect is a violation or at least a circumvention of the INF Treaty. The missile has been tested at both the medium range and intercontinental range, and technologically it's possible that it is an MRBM. Russia is also developing, or at least as an R&D program, they're working on a rail mobile ICBM, which is the Soviet-era program that has been revived recently. With regard to SLBM, we saw the deployment of the Seneva missile. We have still not seen the deployment of Bulava, which is currently the costliest military project in Russia. It failed its last test, and the next test is scheduled for next September. Maybe there will be more, but it's actually a real disaster, but fun to study and research. Liner is an SLBM that has been deployed earlier this year, and it's a new capability in that it's possible to equip Liner missile with a mix of warheads. So it can carry up to 10 low-yield warheads or only 4 medium-yield warheads. SSBNs, Russia started 2 new classes of strategic submarines, the Bore and Bore A. So far, 2 have been deployed. They plan on launching 8 submarines before the end of the decade. That includes the 2 that are already circling in the world oceans. But because Bulava is not ready, the Yuri Dolgorukhy submarine and also Alexander Nevsky are circling the world oceans without the missile on board. Modernization of Russian strategic aviation. Especially in the 90s, Russia focused on overhauling and upgrading its strategic nuclear aviation, and then later on they intensified the process. But it's been only since 2009 that they have been explicitly and very actively working on the new strategic bomber, the PAC-DA. Despite the original reports, it's not going to be a hypersonic bomber. It's going to be a subsonic and stealth bomber equipped with nuclear as well as non-nuclear weapons. There is also the KH-102, which is a nuclear-type ALCOM that was reported or that was expected to be deployed in 2013, but apparently Russia invested more in its conventional variant, so we haven't seen any reports suggesting that this nuclear-tipped ALCOM has been deployed so far. So what have been the trends in Russia's strategic nuclear modernization? The technological trends have been towards enhanced missile defense penetration capability. Russia have been deploying missiles that are capable of carrying more penetration aids and have increased throw weight. Their focus on MIRVing and maneuvering. Their missiles are able to reach targets even further away. And they also deploy missiles with lower yields. But the most interesting trend or realization from my research has actually been that currently we are witnessing something that we have not seen since the end of the Cold War, and that is Russia modernizing all 3 legs of its triad simultaneously. So I ask why. When you look at the articles, they usually deal with the with the arguments and reasons for why Russia keeps its nuclear weapons. But my research question was, why does Russia keep modernizing its robust Soviet-era nuclear arsenal? And I looked at all the reasoning and thought, actually, all the reasons for the maintenance of nuclear arsenal in Russia are valid if you apply a certain kind of interpretation. And I believe that that interpretation is the underlying rationale for the modernization. And that interpretation, certain lens that you have to use, is strategic culture. Strategic culture in Russia has evolved under the conditions of certain constant warfare. Russia has faced invasions from the east, from the west, so they developed a certain presupposition of threat in their mind. They also emphasize capabilities over intentions. So when they look at the world, they don't really see the intentions and the West focused on economic development, etc. But they see states and other actors with capabilities, and they look at that and how that can hurt them. So overall, we can say that Russian strategic culture has been militarized. A source of Russian strategic culture in general is not only geography and history, but also identity. And Russia's identity has two important elements that are important to our research question, and that's a certain great powerness and also messianism. If you look at the articles that deal with Russia's identity, they usually talk about Russia belonging to the West or to the East, or that Russia is a special country. But they never seem to dispute the question of Russia being a great power, or having at least the right to be a great power. So that's one element. The other one is messianism, and that's the belief that Russia is a chosen country that is meant to lead. If you apply that to my research question, it's actually quite easy to see at least one rationale. And that rationale for strategic nuclear modernization is that Russia wants to be the leading military great power that is not only feared, but also admired. It wants to be a great power because that is its identity. And it wants to lead in the military nuclear technology because military power is what matters the most. And nuclear weapons are still regarded as the best and, in a sense, the most effective weapons. So that's why Russia's strategic modernization was actually ended in deploying the state-of-the-art weapons. That's why the modernization has been as it was. Two main conclusions of my research are that as long as nuclear weapons remain regarded as the ultimate and, in a sense, the most effective weapons, and also as long as there is no demilitarizing transformation of Russian strategic culture, we should not expect Russia to stop modernizing its strategic nuclear arsenal. The second conclusion is that if, or as soon as, humankind develops new weapons that will be regarded as better than nuclear weapons, whatever that might be, then we can expect Russia investing in that kind of weapons. And this is the quote that demonstrates my second conclusion by Mr. Putin. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for listening to me and inviting me here, and I'm very looking forward to receiving your questions afterwards.